Okay, welcome to session 9, part B. In this part, we'll explain one concept. We're going to talk about price gouging and the unintended consequences of price gouging laws. Explain what price gouging means. And the key thing I want you to explain, you to understand, I want to explain why Milton Friedman, great economist, Nobel Prize winner, the guy who did the video I Pencil that you've seen before, why he once said price gougers, not only is it not bad, price gougers deserve a medal. You have another reading where I think it's John Stossel quoted Milton Friedman saying, price gougers save lives. Okay. In economics, this is one thing. There are certain policies where lay people and economists are all have the highest disagreements. Usually, we're pretty close to the same. We have we're pretty representative of other voters in terms of our policy preferences, but this is one where there's a huge disagreement. Economists, by and large, do not like these anti-gouging laws. Public at large, who's not taken a number of economics classes, like the anti-gouging laws. Let me explain why economists do not like those, why Milton Friedman would say price gougers deserve a medal. Okay, now you don't have to necessarily agree with Milton Friedman, but you got to understand his argument. This could show up on the exam. Okay. Here is the idea. Here's the quick explanation. I want you to think about the thought experiment. You are the benevolent dictator. You are all powerful. You can decide everything that goes on in the United States, and you're a good person. You want to make sure that people get good outcomes. Okay. What would happen when Hurricane Katrina hits? Okay. First of all, okay, you see it coming. You see the hurricane's about to hit. You'd like to send more plywood down to New Orleans. These shop owners in New Orleans, their shops could just get obliterated by this hurricane. They need to put up the plywood in their windows, save their shop. Okay. If you're the benevolent dictator, you would say things like, hey, as the book mentioned, you person building a home, this home contractor in Lansing, Michigan, normally you might buy this plywood, but look, I'm the benevolent dictator. I'm going to say, no, this plywood is much more useful in New Orleans than it is in Lansing, Michigan. I'm going to tell you, either hold off, okay, do something else, but construct some other part of the house than the plywood parts and buy the plywood later, or switch to another material. Switch to aluminum siding, plastic, adobe. There's other things you could construct your home out of. But I'm a benevolent dictator saying this is the good thing. We need the plywood to go to New Orleans. Okay, that's the first thing you would do. Maybe more likely, what you might do, say there's some warehouse owner, some lumber yard in St. Louis who is planning on shipping plywood to Lansing. If you're the benevolent dictator, you might instead say, hey, lumberyard owner in St. Louis, ship your plywood to New Orleans. Okay. Second, another thing you might do is things like, suppose there's some dog owner in Shreveport, town near New Orleans, who's thinking about building a dog house. You might say to that dog owner, hey, it's not that important. Build your dog house later. Okay, let's ship that plywood to New Orleans. Okay. Let me explain. Here's where I'm going with this. Okay, that is the good outcome. That is what we want to see. This extra plywood going to New Orleans and not to the Lansing home constructor nor the Shreveport dog owner. Okay, that is the good outcome. Let me explain. If you don't have price gouging, if you have these anti-price gouging laws, you might not get those good outcomes. You might instead get the plywood sent to Lansing or sent to the Shreveport dog owner rather than the New Orleans shop owner. Okay, but if you can allow prices to adjust, you don't have these price fixing laws like these anti-gouging laws. Prices can adjust. You get the goods where they can be are most useful. You get the goods. You get an outcome that mimics what that benevolent dictator would do. Okay, so that's the key. So as long as you allow prices to move, you don't have these price gouging laws, you get the good outcomes. Okay, that's where I'm going. Well, let me explain a little more economic analysis why that happens. Okay, here is the idea. Suppose this is the supply and demand for plywood in the New Orleans area. Okay. Here is the original quantity. Let's call it Q sub 0, original price, P sub 0. Hurricane Katrina hits. What happens? Or it's about to hit. What happens? The demand goes up. All of a sudden, all these shop owners say, I got to buy plywood. Okay. People who normally wouldn't be buying plywood say, I got to buy it. Okay. The demand curve looks like this. The new demand curve looks like that. Okay. Under this new demand curve, the market clearing price, let's call it P star, and the market clearing quantity, let's call it Q star, look like this. Okay, they both go up. Okay, here's the problem. When that happens, if you have one of these anti-gouging laws, what happens is those laws enact a price ceiling. They say you cannot sell at a price higher than the original price, the price before this natural disaster was going to hit. So all of a sudden, what the law says is you cannot sell higher than P0. Okay. What happens when you can't sell above that? Well, first off, we have excess demand. In other words, we're going to have a shortage. We're going to have, under the new regime, when Katrina's coming, let's call it Q demand, Q prime D, it's going to be here. The supply, let's call it Q supply, even the new supply is going to equal the old supply. Okay, it's going to be here. But we're going to have a shortage. We're going to have demand is going to be higher than the supply by how much? This amount here is the amount demanded. This amount is the supplied. This is the shortage. These are the people who would like to buy at that low price but can't. Okay, that's how many people are going to get denied this plywood. Okay. So that's a problem. And here's what happens if we think a little bit more about where these particular suppliers and particular demanders are on the supply and demand curve. Okay, first of all, the New Orleans shop owner, it's in this case, he or she is going to be one of the ones who has a very, very high demand. That person is willing to pay a very, very high price for this. His value that plywood be to him or her is very, very high. So what we have is, on the demander, a New Orleans shop owner is up here. Okay. Meanwhile, the person who is not as high a demander would be someone like the Lansing home constructor or the Shreveport dog owner. Okay. According to the example, the thought experiment I just described, that's a person who's willing to buy at the old price, who's willing to buy at the low price, but would not be willing to buy at this higher price. Okay. So what happens is someone like would be here. This is the Shreveport dog owner. Okay. Someone like the Lansing home constructor would be someone similar. Okay. Key thing is they're below the market clearing price, but they're above the old price. Okay. Meanwhile, where are the suppliers? Okay, well, I didn't talk about them, but first of all, probably the main suppliers will be the ones who are the lumberyard owners in New Orleans. Okay, so New Orleans lumber yard. And before they were supplying price at the P0 price, so surely they're going to supply at the new price or at the price under the price ceiling, under the anti-gouging law. So they're going to supply no matter what. We don't have to worry about them. Okay, but what's more interesting is someone like the St. Louis lumberyard. Okay, here's the first thing to note. Okay, when you have these price gouging laws, you set a price ceiling. That's the first thing that's the first problem you have. Is these higher cost suppliers, these suppliers like the St. Louis lumberyard, they don't supply. You don't get that plywood, and that's part of the reason you have the shortage. Okay, there's two reasons you have the shortage. Too many people are demanding, and not enough people are supplying. There's actually two problems. So here's people like the St. Louis lumberyard are not supplying. Okay, here's the other problem: you have too many people demanding. In the optimal world, you'd tell the Shreveport dog owner, "Hey, don't demand." But when the price is so low, they will demand. Now, here is the problem with when you have shortages. So I said, these are the people, how many people will demand this, how many people will supply. You'd like the supply to go to the shop owners, but it won't necessarily go to them. When you have this problem of excess demand, a shortage, who gets the goods? Well, it could be the one who's willing to wait in line the longest. Maybe the Shreveport dog owner got in line first before the New Orleans shop owner. Maybe the Shreveport dog owner is more politically connected, or maybe is just luckier. Okay. The key is, though, when you have these price gouging laws, when you have a price ceiling, it could happen. Here's the demand, here's the quantity supplied. Which of these demanders gets that quantity? And you don't know who it will be. It could be that this Shreveport dog owner gets the plywood, but there's some New Orleans shop owner who really, really, really wants it, does not get it. And that's another part of the problem when you have these price ceiling laws. Okay, so that's the key point. Okay, if you like to think of this, the optimal world where we could have a benevolent dictator. Okay, you get the goods to who want them the most, and you also get people supplying who could benefit those people who want the goods. But you might not get that when you have price gouging laws. On the other hand, if you let prices go to their natural level, their market clearing price, you don't have those problems. You mimic the same outcome as you would get with the benevolent dictator. And for that reason, that is why Milton Friedman says the price gougers, the people who are charging this P prime. It would be included in that St. Louis lumberyard. Okay, would be one of those price gougers. Would say that's why they deserve a medal, not our criticism. Okay, so that is the final part of the analysis. Okay, so that was part B of session 9. Okay, see you have a part C also. See you there.